ever wondered where your self doubt and fear actually come from? Like, I've done a lot of work with self doubt and fear and really helping women entrepreneurs to get over that. And it's always interesting to find, like, where does this really come from? So I'm Valerie, and today on Business by Design podcast, I want to do a deep dive into where this stuff comes from. And I want to do that so that you can learn how to identify it and navigate through it. Join me.
Hello, I'm Valerie Priester, and this is the Business by Design podcast. Are you a woman entrepreneur who absolutely loves what you do and enjoy helping others, but for some reason, you can't seem to get out of your own way? You can't seem to get out of your head and really create the level of success that you desire? I get it. I truly understand. I've been there too. You see, I spent years searching for what do they call it? The holy grail, the secret sauce, right? To success. And what I learned along the way is all of the women that I knew that were very successful had one thing in common, and that was their way of thinking. Now, I know you may be saying it can't be that simple, can't be that easy, right? But the truth is, the number one key or secret, however you want to label it, to success is your way of thinking. It's your mindset. It's what you believe and what you think is possible for you. And so that's exactly why I created this podcast. I want to help you get out of your head, get out of your own way. I want to help you get into more profits, more passion, and more power. I want to help you to shift away from old beliefs and release old ways of thinking, self sabotaging conversations, and help you shift into new beliefs that support your goals and bring lasting success. I want to help you design your victory so you can create the business and life that you desire. So if you're ready for some real talk about how to do that, if you're ready to really make the shift and move into greater possibilities and greater success, you're in the right place.
So let's talk about this self doubt and fear. Fear is a big, big deal. Why? Because so many of us deal with fear on so many different levels. So you may or may not have heard this before, but to tell you the truth about fear, right? We're really only born with two innate fears. One is the fear of falling, and the other is the fear of loud noises. Every other fear is something that we have created in our mind with our thoughts and with the stories that we tell ourselves, right? But the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises, these are fears that are survival based, right? And they're hardwired in our human brain. So, yes, those are real fears. But this other stuff and the self doubt, all the stuff that we put ourselves through, those things are really just made up, right? And I know you've heard, that old cliche saying that fear is false evidence appearing real. That's true. It is false evidence appearing real, right? And when you challenge that, when you really look at, like, what am I really afraid of? And ask yourself that question. What is it that I'm so afraid of that keeps me from moving forward? Or what is it that I so doubt myself about that I can't take the next step? Every fear outside of those two innate fears that we're born with is derived from the subconscious stories that we tell ourselves, right? And a lot of these stories, of course, originated from our experiences. Like the things that we have encountered in this lifetime, they do create fear, they do create self doubt. But I think where we fall short and where we really do ourselves a disservice is that we don't challenge those fears and that self doubt. We don't bring it to the forefront and confront it face to face, toe to toe, right? And ask ourselves the hard questions about, what am I really afraid of? So, here's some examples of things that create fear and self doubt in us. Maybe you are afraid to drive on the freeway, right? That could have possibly come from an accident that you had, early in life, and it happened on the freeway. And so now you have built this story, this subconscious story that says, I have to be extra cautious when I'm on the freeway, or I have to avoid the freeway in order to avoid another accident, right? Things like the fear of crossing bridges. That's one of mine. And just being transparent, right? That's one of mine. And it comes from, I think when I was a child, we did a lot of road trips, and living in Florida, of course, we had to cross several bridges because, Florida is surrounded by water pretty much. So, at least South Florida when we travel down that way. So, when I was a child, I would have the fear of bridges and crossing bridges. And so much so let me show you how this works. So much so that as I grew into like my teen years and then even into my early 20s and possibly even some of my 30s, I would have a recurring dream that I was riding on a bridge, and then all of a sudden there was no bridge. Like there was a piece of bridge missing, because when I looked ahead, I could see the road appear again, the rest of the bridge appear again, but there was this big gap. And so my fear was, the road has run out and I'm going to fall into the water. Now, part of that fear is based in that fear that I'm born with, the fear of falling, right? But the other part of it is created from my experiences of being afraid of riding across bridges when I was a child. And nothing ever bad happened on a bridge. It was just the fear that I felt being over water, right? And mixed with the fear of falling. And so having this recurring dream for so many years continued to feed that fear. And so much so that I wouldn't drive across bridges. I was like, nope, not driving. If I'm riding with my husband, I make sure he was driving across the bridge. And I had to come to a place where I learned how to navigate through that fear, right? Is it completely gone? No. I still don't like bridges. Will I drive over them? Yes. Why? Because I made a decision that this fear will not keep me from achieving the things that I want to achieve. And that thing is as small as getting from one side of the bridge to the other, right? If my life depended on it, I would drive across the bridge. So I put myself in a situation where I was able to navigate through that by driving across the bridge more often, right? Other things like financial hardship. So if you've ever been in a situation where you had to file bankruptcy or you were living paycheck to paycheck, I've been in all of those, by the way, that creates a level of fear around how you're interacting with money, right? And so when you find yourself in a position where you feel like there's not enough money, or you're living paycheck to paycheck, right? Or you're feeling like you're struggling financially, it creates this fear, and it creates doubt. It creates the doubt of, am I ever going to be in a situation where I am financially secure, right? Can I create financial security? It creates all of that. And so when we think about these fears and this self-doubt, we have to then look at, how do I create ways to navigate through that so it does not keep me stuck, or it does not keep me from reaching the level of success that I desire to reach, right? How do I practice methods for building initial um, confidence, self-confidence, if you will, or creating strategies and techniques to help me again navigate through them. For me, it was creating situations where I had to drive across the bridge, right? Creating situations for me to challenge the fear every opportunity that I got, right? So this is something that you have to do when we're talking about these fears and the self-doubt, is that you have to create ways for you to confront it, ways for you to bring it up and bring it to the surface and deal with it, right? Instead of constantly allowing it to be the leader. Don't allow things to put you in a position that you absolutely bow down to it, and then your actions support it. For instance, not driving on the highway, right? If you're afraid of that because of a past experience and you avoid it at all costs, that fear and that self doubt is leading your actions in your life. And I promise you this, if you're letting it lead you in that instance, like you won't drive on the freeway because of the fear and the self doubt, it's also leading you in other areas. It's leading you in your business, it's leading you in your life, right? Because you will always hear me say, how you do one thing is how you do all things. So, whatever it is that you are struggling with in life, I can almost assure you that you're struggling with that same thing in your business. It shows up differently, but it's there, right? That fear, that self doubt, it is there. It is like the tapestry that's woven in between your life and how you live this life, how you operate in this life, and how you operate in your business. It shows up everywhere. So here's a practical step that I want you to take. I want you to spend 5 minutes every evening for the next week, okay? For 7 days. Promise me this, 7 days. I want you to spend 5 minutes and I want you to jot down any self-doubts or fears that popped up for you during the day. I want you to begin to see them, to call them out, to shine a spotlight on them, right? So I want you to become more aware of them, because often we're living day to day and we're not aware of the fears and the self-doubt that show up. But if you take 5 minutes just to sit down and think about your day and jot down, what were those fears? What were the self-doubts that popped up during the day? And then I want you to write next to each of them one piece of evidence that proves this to be untrue or less daunting than you initially thought. One of the ways that I help my clients to really become aware of fears and self doubts is when they can identify it, then I ask, what evidence do you have that proves this to be true? Right? I want to reverse that for you in this exercise, and I want you to write down the evidence that proves it to be untrue. Because what you'll find is that there's no evidence to prove this to be a true fear or self doubt or anything for you to fear or to doubt, right? So take 5 minutes in the evening and write down those self doubts and fears that you encountered during the day, and then write for each one of them evidence that proves it to be untrue or either less daunting than you initially thought it was. Remember, designing your big victory is a choice, and it starts with you becoming more aware of you. Let me just say this. This whole entrepreneur journey for me has been one of the best personal development journeys ever, because what I discovered was while building a successful business, I also transformed myself. I also got to know myself. And that's what this whole experience and whole journey about entrepreneurship and success in entrepreneurship will do for you if you start to design your own victory by becoming aware of you. We'll see you next time.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Business by Design podcast. If you love what you're hearing each week, let me know by leaving a rating and a review. And don't forget to follow the show so you don't miss out on proven mindset techniques, strategies, and tools to help you design your victory and create the business and life you desire. Also, if you're ready to talk about the business and life that you really want, head on over to valeriepriester.com and schedule your private business breakthrough clarity call. Until next week, remember, designing your victory is a choice. Start today.